is a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and
I'm just trying to figure out what's in her mouth.
I just want to see him interview Francesco Accoli.
No, he's a good human being, is what he would say about himself, I'm sure.
Who's hosting this thing?
Take charge, Kevin, would you? Jesus.
First time we ever met those guys. That was the major drunken pub argument.
I think you guys are the worst.
I'm gonna have to probably watch some Canucks hockey, unfortunately.
Just making friends left, right, and center, and probably some enemies as well.
Tell him to shut up. He needs to hear that every once in a while.
Off to a good start.
All right. We are live.
It's okay to talk when it goes live.
It sure is. And welcome to the Hockey Podcast. We are live on Facebook. You can follow us also on Twitter at podcast_hockey, facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, youtube.com, the Hockey Podcast, where we are at currently at 100 and Brock McGinn of subscribers, fell one. And you can subscribe to the audio as after, which it will be shortly after this podcast is done. And I am got to tell you, Sean, we say hello.
Hello, Kevin.
I am not in Florida, but I got to say it's pretty hot here in Vancouver.
Yeah, like it's a scorcher here in Calgary too. It's I think day 2 of 30 plus. So Devin's probably dying in his apartment and probably has another ice pack on his head. For those who watched yesterday, as soon as we went off air, Devin was given an ice pack to put on his head to help cool him down.
I actually have the picture. I'll find it and post it in a little bit here. But I did take a screenshot. It was quite funny. We're kind of it's sort of a weird. I'm kind of feeling a little. I don't know. I have to tell you, I'm feeling a little weird today. We will probably be getting reaction as we speak. I would not be surprised within this podcast that we do get the announcement of the Mark Scheifele suspension. So weird. We're on yesterday. The big story was the Buffalo Sabres winning the lottery. We have a clip on that. You can go and watch a bit of that as well. And then you had the game. We'll get into the game. There was some really interesting things about that, but man, the Mark late in the game, we're not showing the hit, so don't worry about that. But Mark Scheifele, Jake Evans does a wraparound to do the empty net goal. Mark Scheifele hits him, and it just I felt like for me, I just felt that like even talking about this is just pit of my stomach, and I don't quite know why, but
it looked bad. It looked. I think what it was is Jake Evans got hit and the whiplash, and then when he hit the ice, it just looked really bad, and it brought out some emotional, primal responses from basically anyone who watched it. I looked at that hit, and I didn't know what to think, honestly. It wasn't a headshot, so it wasn't, and so it didn't arouse that headshot. Oh fuck, that's dirty. Sort of response that I get when I see those headshots, like when I saw Kadri's. When you saw that, like that was legit a very dangerous predatory headshot. This was a predatory hit. This was an unnecessary hit, but it was outside of him skating all the way back, trying to get back in time to potentially stop an empty net goal. And because of that, it is a charge by the letter of law. That was a charge. But outside of that, that is as clean a hit as you can get. Just other than he was skating since from the other zone, and it was heavy. It was brutal. It was violent. It really shook Jake Evans up. It was one of those, but it was also a bang play. It wasn't interference. It wasn't a headshot, but it was charging. And it was you can make the argument, and I agree with that argument, that it was unnecessary because of the whole build up to that play.
I thought Hockey Night in Canada did a pretty good job in showing the emotion that Scheifele was going through. And, you know, there's one side talking about playoff hockey. So if we're going to get into what playoff hockey is, the Montreal Canadiens do not have a chance of winning this series without irritating Mark Scheifele constantly. Like, you probably, if you're a Canadiens fan, you want Mark Scheifele to be frustrated because he clearly, that line compared to the Oilers series, they were not getting in the same room in Game 4 that they were Game 1 of this series. He was very frustrated. I thought hockey, and just like the shot that got me, there's two shots that got me. The shot that when Evans went back, that was the whiplash, and then how he landed, because he landed, I'm kind of, for those that are watching it, his shoulders were kind of stretched, and he landed really limp, and it absolutely looked scary. And just when Cassie Campbell Pascal showed Scheifele's eyes, I'm not judging his. I want to be careful in saying that I know his intent, because I don't know Mark Scheifele. I've never met Mark Scheifele, and I don't know what is going through his head. I can't speak to that, but showing his eyes, and I think in part recognizing what happened, there certainly seemed to me that he was in some sort of moment, and there's probably, I'm also not going to pretend to be a psychologist here, but there was probably a myriad of emotions that he went through going down the ice. I think that's fair to say. And it's not one, I don't think it's one black and white that he went this. He probably was trying to, at one point, he was probably trying to get the puck. On the other hand, he was probably, he probably wanted to get a shot in at Jake Evans. And we have seen shots happen, like just a push and a shoving, making a statement. Probably a number of things. We'll never truly know that. And to me, I mean, again, I don't think that Mark Scheifele is a player that has a history of doing this. And again, I don't know Mark Scheifele, but to me, all of that being said, I think that one of some of the best comments was from Brendan Gallagher, and from most of the panel from Hockey Night in Canada, and even what I heard from Jamie McLennan today, and a few players, is he may not be that type of player, but it was not a good play. And I think at the end of the day, he knows it, and he should be suspended for it. I'm not, I gotta tell you, I've been a Scheifele fan. It was it was hard to watch him have his leg broken during the play-ins last year. I mean, he is a dynamic player that we haven't seen enough, or we talk about enough. He doesn't strike me as a guy that goes out of his way to do this, but it was not his best moment, and hopefully he learns from it.
He was definitely frustrated throughout the most of that game. Neither of us can actually get into what the Scheifele's actual intent was, but we can kind of we can subjectively put the puzzle pieces together and go from there. When I looked at that play, like he got on his horse and was back checking, trying to get back to avoid giving up an empty net goal. He stopped skating at about the top of the circles, and I think he had resigned the fact that he wasn't going to stop the goal, and he wanted to at least put the body on Jake Evans and do it that way. And that's part of playoff hockey too. That's part of the intimidation factor of what hitting can be. I think there's a lot of people who want that intimidation factor and everything out of the game and only focus on physical contact to separate man from puck, player from puck. And I think but I still think that's still part of the game. You want players to hear footsteps and maybe double overthink things or make a mistake because they're nervous about receiving a hit. That is part of the game. But because he skated so hard from the full length of the ice, the impact of that hit, regardless of what his intent was devastating. And I'm willing to listen to the argument about it still being a hockey play and all that, as you can tell with how I've worded this. But you know what also is a hockey play, and it's the impact of these two events are completely different. But when you go to lift up a player's stick, miss, and then hit him in the face and get a high sticking penalty, it may be completely different on the scale of what the damage is and how devastating it can be. But that's what it is. Scheifele put himself in a position where he created a situation that created an injury, created a devastating hit that was a charge. And he has to answer to that. And whatever his suspension is, it's not going to be over 5 games because the NHL didn't give him the in-person hearing. So I'm guessing 2 to 3, and I think he deserves every minute of that because of that. But I also don't think I also think we have to look at that and do say, yeah, it is out of character for him. It is something that we don't normally see from a Mark Scheifele. I think we have to say that's part of the story. We all hope that Jake Evans is okay, and then by all accounts, he didn't have to go to the hospital, which is really, really good. But I don't think we're seeing Jake Evans for the rest of this series because I don't think that his head and neck are going to be healthy enough to play. And then, like I said, we're probably not going to see Mark Scheifele for another 2 to 3 games.
Yeah, I don't think we see, there hasn't been enough conversation. Well, I mean, there's been a certain amount of conversation on him, but let's talk about Jake Evans, the player, because this is a guy that Tony Marinaro, I hope I pronounced his name, from TSN 690 said, and I would respect his opinion on the Habs. He's a guy that says if Philip Deneau walks, Jake Evans would be a great replacement to be that shutdown type of center that they have. He's a guy that if you've listened to our podcast, we've been very high on as a player. The Habs are certainly a better team with him in the lineup than they are without. Gritty guy, I think plays a hard game. And the Habs, the Habs are going to miss him. I mean, it's the poor guy, and it's his birthday too. Like that, I mean, from a human perspective, I feel for that. I mean, like, I don't know how to word that, but it's just unfortunate that it's his birthday. And that, he's a really good player. Guy I really like a lot, and I hope when and if he comes back, he's able to play the same way, because he's effective at what he does. So I do want to bring that point up.
He's unfortunately, Jake Evans now has a history of some severe concussions too.
Why I said when and if.
Yeah,
because I do think
was 2 years ago. He got hit in a preseason game, and lost and had a major concussion. So, I really hope that he's able to come back and play, because, or at least be able to have a life that isn't riddled with post-concussion symptoms, because we don't want that for hockey players. We want the game to be as safe as possible. But I think getting into a little bit of this discussion, it's very tough to try and keep the game that we love, especially in the playoffs, where it's fast and you get some skill, but it's also gritty and violent and brutal at times. I grew up watching that hockey, and I like it. It's irrational. It's probably not the smartest take I'll have, but I do like watching that stuff. And let's go back to who was one of the most popular players back in the 90s, Scott Stevens. What was he popular for? Brutal, devastating hits. He wouldn't be playing in the NHL now, because the things changed. We learned about the player's health, but you saw it's such a fine line. So when you see that, and you see people like screaming for Mark Scheifele to be gone for the playoffs and have the book thrown at him, I don't think that this hit deserves that. I think he deserves to be suspended. 2 to 3 games is a very significant suspension in the playoffs. If it's 3 games, he could be gone for the playoffs. That's if the Jets don't win a game while he's out, then that could be the playoffs for them. So it's a very, very significant. It will be a very significant suspension if it's 2 plus games.
Well, yeah. Just to get back to Evans too. This isn't his first he's actually had 3 concussions in his NHL career. I don't know if that his junior career. So there is a bit of a concern there as well. That's why I said when and if, because I'm not, we don't know with concussions. Like that's the thing. And so I wish for a speedy recovery. But I guess the other side of this, though, is I do think that there is a section of the fan base that I don't think it's not that they don't want intense hockey. I think we all enjoy intense hockey, and I even you look at the Florida Tampa series and how fun that series was, because it was a combination of skill with some intensity and grit to it. Even Carolina and Tampa, you look at that series, that's a combination of skill and grit. But you even watch, unfortunately, a game getting overshadowed, that might have been one of the best. It's certainly, for me, last night's Colorado Vegas game. If I do a top 5 list of games of the year, this game is going to be on it for sure. I think people want the opportunity to watch the skill players do their thing. And I'm not saying that this is, I don't think that there's anything within this play. I can't compare it to Wilson and Kadri, because they're not, Scheifele isn't Wilson or Scheifele isn't Kadri. I think that these are 3, I don't want to lump him in with those guys because he's not that guy. But I think that I think people are just, and we've had this bigger discussion is where NHL player safety takes this in terms of taking not taking the physicality out of the game, not taking the intensity out of the game, but eliminating plays that appear to be or dealing with player things that are intend to injure, and that is beyond. And before you go, this is not only George Peros. I think this is really important. George Peros is getting a ton of. We'll get a ton of this, but I also think there's the NHL, and the NHLPA needs to take a little bit of a responsibility to this. There's a lot of things that Peros is handcuffed by, but the letter of the law is in the agreement between the NHL and the NHLPA. So I think I think the big issue, and I think one of the things is this whole concept around player safety. And you talk about Scott Stevens. Paul Carrillo was never the same after that hit from Scott Stevens. Eric Lindros was never the same after that hit from Scott Stevens. And we know so much more about concussions now than we did before. And I think, that's, to me, I think that's where people are concerned. I think this is where I can speak for me. This is where I'm concerned. What, in terms of concussions, in terms of where players are mentally during and after the game, that's what concerns me.
Oh, and I get that. I think most fans get that. It's finding that right balance of punitive and teaching the players how to hit to avoid concussions as much as possible, as well, but while still keeping that in there. And I think this whole discussion started last night when you put out a tweet talking about a lack of consumer confidence in that, and I think, and then Tyler and I both agree on. I think there is it's finding that right balance where I think fans do want to see fast-paced, physical hockey, but we don't want to see. But we don't want to see when it crosses the line. We want it to be disciplined properly, and that's where the disconnect is from, say, like Tyler and I to others, where they basically want the book thrown at any bad hit, any bad play. They want the book thrown at them, while we look at it as, I think there's a little more nuance and a little more. There should be a scale that needs to be used, and we don't want to see players get injured or knocked out and on the ice like that, or stretchered off. That's not good for the game. No, it's finding that right balance, and I feel like right now the NHL is probably under suspending most of its most of the time, but I think that the screams and cries that are coming from Twitter and social media are almost overreactions for the NHL's underreactions, and I think there's a middle ground that I think will work, and I think we have to hopefully we can find that going forwards.
Well, I think there's an overreaction on two levels. There's the overreaction on one side that is like, let's throw the book at Mark Scheifele, never let him play another game again. And then there's the other side, and I don't want to give this the credence that it is. But some that are saying that Jake Evans should have had his head up. I mean, I don't know if that, even if his head is up, I still think that hit still could have had the deadly potential that it does. And I don't think Jake Evans deserves any blame for what happened, and I don't like that take at all. I think there was another play to make from Jake Evans and not try and force that in there, but he didn't deserve to get hit the way he did. And I think you can have that discussion without actually putting the blame on Jake Evans. You can say that, like, if he had his head up, I don't think he forces that play and he skates around and tries to get it in score the goal in another way. But again, just because he made that play doesn't mean he deserves to get run over the way he did. Doesn't mean he deserves to get a concussion on his birthday.
I think there's a way to have that discussion without putting the blame on Jake Evans for what happened. The blame lies solely on Mark Scheifele for committing to that play and hitting him as hard as he did.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting. Like, okay, and we'll get to Michael here. We'll say hello to Michael. He has a comment. But in terms of where this series goes, in terms of the game, I think the unfortunate part about this, from the Jets' perspective, is they were facing a wall. But as that game went on, they started to kind of claw back into this, and I don't know if Evans doesn't score. I think that there's a reasonable chance that they tie the game and that goes to overtime. They were starting to come on. They were finding ways, and for as far as people saying that the Habs have won, that Scheifele has cost the series, I'd like to wait and see for the suspension part first before I say yes or no to that. But the other thing is from the Jets' perspective, they have players that have played center before, and Maurice is able to balance that line around. If they get out of whatever Scheifele, if let's say it is 2, let's go with 2, just for humor me here for a second. If they split, they still have a chance to win the series.
Yeah, they do.
Yep. I would suggest that the loss of Evans is I don't want to say a bigger loss, but it's a tougher. How do I word this?
I think I understand where you're going, because Jake Evans was part of that shutdown line with Danault and Gallagher. But I think Danault and Gallagher with another player of a similar ilk, you could throw in Arturi Lehkonen in there. I think they can still be effective. It's not going to be the same, because Jake Evans, it definitely was playing really well for the Habs, and the sooner he can, if there's a way he can come back and play in these playoffs, that'd be amazing. As long as he doesn't put his health in too much, risking his health long-term health too much. But I think there's still if there's a strength of the Habs, it's their depth on the wings.
Yeah,
more than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know if they have a guy that's specifically a replacement for Evans. That's the one thing that I'm concerned about. So I don't want to say it is a significant loss in that sense, but the other significant loss, this has been overshadowed for sure. But the other thing that, if I'm the Jets, I'm also concerned about the loss. Dylan DeMello's health in this series. He went out in the first period. We were on the air. Ask the Leafs. Ask Devin if he comes on. Ask Isha from the Soda Pod and the Soda Pod folks. A few others here. The loss of a major defenseman is huge, and I know that people don't think Dylan DeMello is a top flight defenseman, and I get that. But for the Jets, he was doing a good job. Devin's a big fan of Dylan DeMello, and I do think that that's a pretty huge loss for the Jets. That cannot be overstated.
Oh, it totally is. He fit into the system that the Winnipeg runs really well. That they really have to rely on Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk going forwards with that, to make it happen, to if they're going to find a way to make it through this round. And it's just, he may not be like a true, he's definitely not a top pair defenseman, and he's definitely more of a 4-4-5 guy. But those depth defensemen, if they're playing well, are very important to having success in the playoffs, and you need to have them. So it's time to see what the rest of the depth of the Winnipeg Jets blue line is and what they have. Do we see Ville Heinola play? Do we see Jordy Ben step up? Like that's the big those are the players that we're going to be seeing probably, or I can't remember what the their actual pairings were, unfortunately, but they're going to have to see players like that step up, whether or not they were playing or not. They have to step up because Dylan DeMello was playing in their top four and playing significant minutes for them.
Yeah. It's going to be a very interesting series. I don't know what to expect Friday or tomorrow in terms of the game. I don't know where people. I could go either way in terms of what happens there. So I'll wait. I'd like to think a little bit more about in my own head how I feel about what to expect tomorrow in terms of the game. But I hope for the most part cooler heads do prevail. But I'll wait and see. How's that?
Yeah.
Michael says hello. Go Bolts. I'm going to tease you. I have a prediction. I have a bold prediction coming up there. But I do want to talk about Vegas and Colorado because that was a really great game last night.
Oh, it's fantastic! So much fun to watch.
Yeah, and
Grubauer was amazing. It was like he heard all the doubters about him being a Vezina nominee.
Yes. He must have listened to you on a couple. He watched you.
No. Let hold on. I said all three goalies were earns their nominations, but if you had to pick someone who felt snubbed, it was UC Saros in Nashville. I think there was 3 to 4, maybe even 5 goalies that deserved that were right up there this season.
No, I'm just giving you a rough time, but I think Colorado got off to a good start. Vegas started to push back, but my goodness, okay. Before we get to the power play, the call. If I'm a Vegas Golden Knight fan, I'm sure the hell not happy with that call.
Well, yeah, but Tyler's not here to say this line. But if you put yourself in a position for the refs to call a penalty, it's hard to complain about it. What did we talk about? How many times about this will come back. This will come back because they'll let a lot of stuff go and we'll see. They let a lot of stuff go in that game alone. Was it Patrick Brown cross-checked Landeskog in the face off that didn't get called?
Yeah.
But
you tackle someone, it's no call. But if you tap a stick, how dare you, young man?
You got to play. I'd be angry. I'd be angry as to no end if that call went on the Canucks in a playoff game. I'd be raging right now, for sure. But it's just what you have to deal with when you've got refs making subjective calls. Because no matter what, I know we talk about call the rules by the book. There's still subjectivity in all the rules. No matter how, unless it's puck over glass, and then it's not.
Yeah. And someone made a legitimate argument. Tyler Shipley made and it was a legitimate argument that I did disagree, but I do see his point is if you're gonna throw the rule book out, that should maybe in overtime. That I don't know. I don't think I disagree with him, but I did see where he's coming from, for sure on that. But anyway, but man, Vegas, you got to be careful though, because you can't take penalties against this Colorado power play at all.
And Vegas had done a really good job on shutting down that top unit up until that point too in both games.
Yep. Yeah.
But the more opportunities you give them, they're gonna burn you. So, but it was a great game. As I told you, I think this series is still going to be a really good series, even if it is 5 or 6 games. It's still going to be a very fun series to watch. Vegas still has you also have to look at what's the old old adage. It's not a series until a game is until the home team loses a game.
Yeah,
And
so
it's
game three is
both
big.
games are in Colorado. They're going game 3 is going to be a must-watch game because we're going to see a full barn in Vegas, full attendance. We see how crazy Vegas gets. The drummers are going to be out. The glow sticks are going to be out. The Knight's going to crush some sort of avalanche thing in the pregame. Everyone's going to be pumped, and it's going like it. If Vegas comes back and wins both games at home, the series is still why I can't. If Colorado can win game 3, then I think we start looking at that. But if Vegas wins Vegas wins game 3, whatever momentum in series momentum the Avs have is stopped, dead. Like it's gone because that crowd will bring the best out of that Vegas team.
Yeah, to this even tonight to Boston and the Islanders. The Islanders fan base is going to have some things to say.
It's in the old barn too,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you know Trotz is going to run out that fourth line. They're going to hit everything that moves in that first shift. That the crowd's going to go absolutely bananas and blow the roof off of that. Hopefully that nothing breaks, but it's gonna that's talk about must watch. It's going to be must watch tonight.
Right. Yeah. It's still Fleury, like no disrespect to Robin Leonard, but I think one of the turning points of the game that kept Vegas in it was when Fleury jumped up and played the puck. A lot of people thought it was insane, but that turned out to be such a smart play. And I just think Vegas started to build. I think Vegas builds so well off of what Fleury does. But that Colorado team is so skilled though, up and down the lineup. It'll be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, so Michael Sachs here. Hello, fellas. How's it going with you two? Go Bolts. Here's my bold prediction, Sean. Are you ready?
Your Bolts prediction?
My Bolts prediction. See, even though I knew that was a terrible joke, I ran with it, and we keep going. So Carolina is going to win both games in Tampa Bay.
Wow, that is a Bolts prediction.
They are going with Peter Mrazek tonight. But no, I just think Nedeljkovic. I'd say it's tough when you're a rookie and no disrespect to the guy. I mean, he allowed a couple of questionable goals, but I just think Carolina is going to come back and have a 2 good games. They haven't been behind by that much. It's been 2 really close games for sure. So I can see, and Carolina almost pulled it out a couple nights ago. So I'm saying Carolina's winning both games in Tampa, and they're tying the series.
I'll hold you to it, Kev. I don't see it. I see.
I'm still picking Tampa to win.
I think they'll split the games, but that's with Tampa up 2-0. I think it will be the Lightning just they figured out how to win, and they figured out how to win the playoffs, and they've got so much depth. And as good as the Canes can be, it's I think they've got. I think Tampa's just a step ahead, and I think they'll split the games in Tampa, and that'll be it. It'll be a 5 or 6 game series.
Fair. I still think Tampa wins this series, but I think Carolina is going to tie it.
To be honest, I hope you're right, because that will be a lot more fun to cover.
Yeah. And then Boston, the Islanders tonight. That series is tied at 1. That barn will be fun as well. So that is there. Let's just also quickly talk talk about Canada at the World Championships. Andrew Mangiapane scored the game winner for
Thanks
Canada.
to Troy Stetcher.
I was going to say that. Let me get through this. On the assist by former Canuck Troy Stetcher. And Canada moving on. Good to see. For both guys, for Mangiapane, Graham from Oilers YYC podcast said that this was a guy that the Oilers should have at least thrown an offer sheet at. I'm really happy for him. I think he's growing into one of those players I think that everybody is going to want on their team. And for the Flames, I think that only leads to good things going forward for him. And I mean, I don't want to overreact, but it's just it's growth for a player.
It is growth. It is growth. We saw growth from him this year. Like we stepping up and being that top 6 forward that the Flames were hoping he could develop into, and he's him doing that gives them options in this offseason to maybe balance out that lineup that they need to do going forwards.
Yep. I mean, if you're tree living, his growth gives you some optimism, and he talked about it yesterday. But I mean, it doesn't mean that you throw. I think the one thing that I would just say is I'm not throwing him into the entire bath into the fire yet. I still want to see a little bit more, but it's, I think, a good sign. Good sign for him. And for Stetcher, I think he's got an A in his chest. I think he continues to grow. I know. I think the Canucks missed him. I think Detroit is happy with him, and I don't think anybody has anything bad to say about Troy Stetcher. I think just continue. Another guy that this is a tournament that's going to be so good for him and his development going forward. Yeah,
I still think going forwards, I think, and I know Canucks fans will yell at me for this. I don't think he fits into the right with Quinn Hughes and now Jack Rathbone coming in. I think they need some bigger, more physical defensemen to play on that blue line. But the fact that they got nothing for him was the biggest issue here. They didn't qualify him, and they let him walk. And it's just that's the biggest travesty for me as a Canucks fan, is that as much as I love watching him play and the heart and hustle that he has and some underrated skill, I think it's the fact that the Canucks got nothing for him is the biggest issue.
Yeah. And just one more quick Canuck thing. Chris Tanev was on Donnie and Dolly today. I don't know if you had a chance. Did you have a chance to listen to that?
I listened to a little bit of it. I was just distracted by his headshot in the wrong colors. He'll always be a Canuck to me, but I think it's he's Chris Tanev, man. We'll get into this a little bit later, but I think the Flames got it wrong with their best defenseman award.
Yeah, we'll jump in. I got Russo FN says Habs in 6. Hello, Russo. Please like and subscribe. What are your predictions in the series? I think we both have the Jets, and I'm not ready to change that prediction. I'm sticking with my prediction on that. I just, for conviction's sake, just even if I'm going to be wrong, I'm going to stick with my prediction anyway. So that's.
I think
my wrongness.
I had Jets in 6, I believe, and I want to see what the Scheifele suspension is before I want to change it if I want to. Yeah,
for sure. There was some Flames news today. Mark Giordano was named best defenseman. What was the name of this award? They're naming all these awards in Calgary now. Kind of opposite of what the current trend of the world is right now, where we're trying not to name anything. The Flames are like, well, let's name everything here.
The Clayton H. Riddle Award.
Yeah. They're all named after basically Flames ownership, but it's the best defenseman named Mark Giordano. Yeah, they. To me, in my opinion, it was Chris Tanev. I think Chris Tanev was legitimately. I would put Chris Tanev in the Flames MVP conversation. He was definitely their best defenseman. Calm things for Noah. You saw strides in Noah Hannafin this year. When Giordano moved to play with Tanev, Giordano was playing a lot better. But I think probably what happened here is the history and the contributions and what Mark Giordano has meant to the Calgary Flames organization is why he got the award. This was sort of a what are those awards that you get like a history award? Do you know what I mean?
I can understand that, but for me, if they were, I think when I looked at that, and one of the things I look at that, and I think it's going to break the hearts and minds of people who were hoping that the Flames would find a way to move on from him this offseason. It's not happening. It's not happening. I don't see it. I think you're going to have Mark Giordano on that blue line next year as well. I think. And what they do with the rest of it, because you've got Hannafin and Tanev, who both I think deserved it more than deserve that award more than Gio this season. You've got Anderson, you've got Valimaki and Connor Mackey, but it's a little left heavy on that blue line. But we'll see what happens. But I do think that. For me, this solidified that they are going to find a way to keep Mark Giordano in this offseason.
Yeah, I always predicted that. I didn't think that would change anything in terms of that, actually.
I think that's more breaking Devin's heart.
Yeah, to me, I don't think that they were ever moving off. I think that they were going to go one more year. I think that going into last year during the bubble playoffs, we had the conversation about moving the C from Giordano to Tkachuk. I think that in part, whatever Matthew Tkachuk went through, I think that there was certainly some caution, red flags in terms of giving Matthew Tkachuk the C. I think that that's fair to say. But I
also think. I don't know if this is where you're going, Kev. Sorry for interrupting, but I also think that the way that all that was handled, I think, shows some issues with the current leadership group in that room as well.
Well, I was going to I don't disagree with you on that, but what I was going to say is I do think Mark Giordano is a Daryl Sutter player.
Oh, and that is also true. He definitely is.
Yeah, and I think that's part of that. So I think that they will. I'm the one for an expansion draft that's doing the mock, and I think that they do. I'm leaving him unprotected. I think the Flames are leaving him unprotected, but I can see them making a deal for the Kraken not to take him.
I don't think the Kraken take him anyways.
Yeah, if I'm the Kraken, that's not the first guy I'm taking off the Flames roster, but I don't think the Flames want to lose him either. I think the Flames would rather. What I'm saying here is not what I necessarily would do. I'm just speculating what I think the Flames will do. I think the Flames would prefer that the Kraken take someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And whether whoever that is may not be a smart decision. You may not agree with that decision, but that's where the Flames are going.
And I think part of that is what will happen, what the Flames will do pre-expansion draft. I think they make a move. With one of those forwards, whether it's Monahan, Gaudreau, maybe even Tkachuk, pre-expansion draft, and because I think that if they do that, and they're able to potentially get, actually no, it's not going to work. I was trying to see if they could manage to do 4-4, but I don't think they can. I think they are stuck with only protecting 3 3 defensemen, but I think they will find a way to keep the 4 of Giordano, Hannafin, Anderson, and Tanev because I think that's the 4 they want to build around, and I think they're going to find a way to keep them.
Yeah. I did have a chat also with a couple of one of the well-known Flames Twitter folks, because he's Sea of Red Central is really, really wanting the Flames to get Jack Eichel and is willing to give up. I think he's willing to give up the Calgary Tower if he can to get Jack Eichel, and maybe even Mayor Nenshi. He maybe even be able to want to throw him into whatever deal to get Jack Eichel. I kid you, but that was a funny joke. That's a good joke. Anyway,
Nenshi's on his way out anyways. So.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, he's leaving. Do you see it? I ask you this, like I mean, I know you support the Canucks, so you're going to be a little bit more biased there. But do you see Eichel as a fit in Calgary? Is that someone that like you would give up a farm for?
I think it is someone that would fit, but at what cost?
And that's my concern.
Because Monahan's got a modified no trade clause. He won't waive to go anywhere. He won't waive to go to Buffalo.
He won't waive to go to Buffalo.
Yeah. He's got a 10-team no trade list, and Buffalo's definitely on that list. So you're looking at moving either Gaudreau or Tkachuk as your main piece, and then you still have to add.
I think it takes this year's first, next year's first, Tkachuk, Valimaki, and probably something else.
Man, where's Devin when you need him? I want his take on this, because we know he hates these big deals as a Flames fan for the Flames because of he likes depth, but you know that like there needs to be a change in there. The other thing is Eichel's $10 million on the books as a cap hit for the next. Where is he? Injured. Next 5 years after this. Like I think he's worth it, but we also saw that like out of the rest of the playoffs, there's no players making over 10 million. Other than Carey Price.
Well, not only that, you still have his health, the question of his health. I'm not being stupid there. That's just that reality. And Buffalo hasn't had success. To me, if I'm a Flames, I'd rather go after Reinhart. If I had to choose one of the two, I think Reinhart's a cheaper. I still think you'd have to give up a lot to get Reinhart, but I think it's ultimately a better fit. You got a right shot. He can play center and wing.
What are you paying Reinhart? Because he needs a new contract. He's coming off a contract with a cap hit of 5.2. This season, he put up 25 goals in 54 games.
What's Gaudreau making?
Gaudreau is making 6.75 on the cap.
I don't know if I'd go 6.75, but I'd probably be in the 6 range.
Okay.
It probably costs you Gaudreau anyway.
It costs you one of Gaudreau and Tkachuk. It costs you, and you'll have to add again.
Yeah, and
is that something that you? I think that is a better option for the Flames, because he is also someone who can play center and the wing, and he's a right shot, which is something they desperately need, especially in their top 6. Especially because adding Reinhart would give them the ability to put Lindholm back to the wing if needed, and play Reinhart at center, or play Reinhart on the wing and keep Lindholm at center. So it gives them a little more flexibility in that aspect. And the cost the acquisition cost will be significantly less. I don't think it's as big as what you were putting out there, Kev. But especially if you're adding a Tkachuk or a Gaudreau. But all that being said, both Tkachuk and Gaudreau are only have 1 year left on their deal. Gaudreau's a UFA, so I think that makes him a little less. Makes him less. I don't think Buffalo wants Gaudreau with that aspect, because why would he sign there? So I think that takes him off the board. So no matter if they go after Reinhart or Eichel, everything starts with Tkachuk.
Well, I mean, the other thing is, if you're Buffalo, I mean, maybe Monahan doesn't want to go there, but if you grab Monahan and you can try to get him to get something and flip him, and same with Gaudreau, maybe.
Yeah, but Buffalo, why would Monahan waive unless it's a full on already built into it? If they're going to do that, it has to be a three-way trade. Yeah, that's the other thing. It cannot be they make that trade and then say, "Oh, we promised to move you." If I'm Monahan, I don't say yes to that trade, just in case they can't do it.
Yeah, I hear you. I think it's tough to get. I think both. I definitely don't see the Flames in the Eichel sweepstakes. I just don't see it. But I understand why Flame fans want that. And I think it's going to be tough to get Reinhart too, to be honest with you. But
Reinhardt's easier, but again, it starts with Tkachuk. Are you willing to give up Tkachuk for Reinhart?
No.
Then
I'm not. But I'm not hired as a general manager of the Calgary Flames. But I am personally not willing to do it. That's
where it's at. Like, because Gaudreau is a UFA after next season, he ain't signing in Buffalo. There's no way he's signing in Buffalo. He's already gone through a frustrating time here in Calgary with not being able to win a series other than way back in 2016, 15. Let alone make the playoffs. And you're going to Buffalo, where they've been an absolute tire fire. He ain't signing there. So there's no way and they know that. So there's no way they want him in that deal. Unless they know that they can flip him for a lot, but then it's. And the other thing is, Gaudreau's modified no trade clause kicks in this summer as well.
Yeah.
So that's another 5. Submits a 5-team trade list. 5 teams he's willing to get traded to. And I don't see, again, Buffalo's not going to be on that list. I don't know when that actually kicks in. I don't like normally that would kick in July 1st, but I don't know what the timeline is for a lot of those clauses this season because of everything. But I don't see Buffalo wanting that, just because I think they want to get players who want to play there, or aren't going to want to say, I want out right away. And now, if I'm Johnny Gaudreau, I say that right away. I'm like, you acquired me? Trade me. I don't want to play here. And I think Buffalo needs to build a culture of players that want to build and grow that team into a contender from ground up.
Yeah.
And even then, why would Tkachuk say otherwise as well? So I think him being an RFA with arb rights after next season is a little bit easier to take, but again, arb rights, he probably takes him to arbitration, and then he'll let's see here. Do I know? Crap. All right. They'll take him to arbitration, and then he'll just walk to free agency because I think he's due for free agency pretty quickly, honestly.
Who, Matthew? Matthew is due 22-23. He's an RFA.
His UFA is 23. So like literally, he would take the 1 year arb case and walk to free agency and gone. When we talk our way through this, I don't see a fit for Eichel. I don't see a fit for Reinhart with the Flames unless they're willing to give up Valimaki and some firsts for Reinhart alone, not let alone throwing the farm at Buffalo for Eichel.
Yeah, I don't see it either. Anything else we need to speak about?
Don't think so. There wasn't really much out of Vancouver other than some continued rumblings about what the Sedins are going to pop in as some advisors and building into and learning how to be managers. Looking like they're going to be adding another assistant coach because they never replaced Manny Malhotra. And I think that's good. I think both those moves are good. And then I'm just hoping and waiting for the Ian Clark deal to get signed, sealed, and delivered because until it's done, I'm still not sure if it will get done.
That's fair. Yep. They've got to get that done pretty quick here. They've got, I think, 27, 28 days before he becomes a free agent as well. So, before the finals, same with Gaudreau. You want to get that done as soon as possible. You don't want that lingering. But let's leave it there. We will be back for sure Sunday morning. And we'll play wait and see if we do a recap Saturday morning on Friday night's game, kind of see where everybody's at. I know Devin is pretty busy right now. So
Devin's basically getting prepped for the everything with his company opening up, with Alberta opening up, and I'm pretty busy getting ready for a move. So we'll see what's going on.
Yeah. Michael Sachs leaves a final comment. Sorry, Kevin, we will sweep the Canes. Lucky to get one game. We'll see. I've been wrong before. I'm willing to be wrong again. But I stand by my.
I was supposed to say you've been wrong before. You'll be wrong in the future, and because everyone is, though. That's the thing.
All right. How do we follow everyone?
I am Bearded Canuck 03 on Twitter.
Devin Gordhouse09. Tyler TNOBLE, Schneids SCHNEIDZ. I am KEVOLE, podcast_hockey, Facebook.com, The Hockey Podcast, YouTube.com, The Hockey Podcast. Please like and subscribe and tell your friends about all the stuff out there. We've got clips of specific episodes out there as well that you can listen to and subscribe. Thanks, everyone. We will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.